Hi, my name's Paul and this is my Porsche 944.
Today's Haltech hero is an interesting guy. Not because of his love of Porsches, a brand usually associated with super expensive, high-end builds, but because he's managed to build, maintain, and successfully race one on a very modest budget. As is often the case, Paul's love for cars started out early on, with his first car, an XY Falcon, which also ended up being his first big project. Paul fully restored the car and still has it today. Incidentally, it was also that car that got Paul into the life of motorsport.
When I went out for the track days, I was mentored by a couple of the guys over at Centreline Suspension in Melbourne, and they sort of nudged me to go to the racetrack to have a bit of a look and see what was running around.
There was plenty of motorsport action around at the time and no shortage of platforms to choose from. But there was one series that really got Paul's attention.
Caught a glimpse of all the 944s in the 944 Challenge and thought it looked like a great package to get started on.
The 1980s and 90s front-engine Porsches might be frowned upon by the Stuttgart purists, but they've proven themselves to be well-balanced and great handling all-round race cars. And as a result of the aforementioned frowning, they're also affordable.
With the 944s, I've found that they're a well-balanced car, and a lot of the things just worked out of the box. So the car still runs the factory brakes on the rear, surprisingly, and that was from the non-turbo model. I don't know how it's pulling up, but they just work.
Paul quickly located a suitable car and after a bit of bargaining, drove home in a reasonably priced, well-looked-after 1983 Porsche 944.
When I got the car home, I thought, prior to ripping out all the seats, I may as well take the family and the kids for a bit of a run so they can see what the car's like prior to everything happening and me taking it out on the racetrack. Kids loved it, wife not so much, because it was another car in the garage.
As it turns out, it wasn't long before the car needed an engine rebuild. And in case you haven't noticed yet, Paul is a bit of a do-it-yourself kind of guy. Whenever he can, he tries to do all the work himself. His race car is a result of countless hours spent in the garage fixing, building, rebuilding, tinkering, and improving. And this all while still working a full-time job.
When I first got the car, it was a little bit hard to find time. I was still doing my Monday to Friday job, trying to build a house as well as an owner builder, and the only time was after the kids went to bed, which was after about 9 o'clock in the evening. So come 9 o'clock, I'd put on the work clothes, walk into the garage and work till about 12, 1 in the morning. And I didn't want to be that guy that had the neighbour knocking on the door at 1 going, what's all this racket? So it was a little bit hard to get everything done peacefully and quietly. But yeah, just sort of made it happen for a couple of weeks, which was nice. When I kicked off the racing, just had a car and it was a little bit hard to get it to the track, seeing as I didn't want to drive it there and have an issue and then not be able to drive it home. So one of my friends ended up buying a trailer, Mark, over in Melbourne. So I feel I've used his trailer more than what he has. So yeah, big thanks to him. Mal as well, he's normally come to a lot of the events and changing wheels for me when I'm standing there looking at him. So it's nice that he's been there to help out.
After successfully competing in a number of events at state level, Paul decided to take a leap and he entered the car in the 2014 World Time Attack Challenge.
2014 was a massive eye-opener at World Time Attack. Took the car up there and Ian Baker initially told me run it in open because it was a race car. So once I got there, started looking at all the cars in the open category and I'm there thinking, what am I doing here?
As it turned out, given its limited modifications and lack of proper aero, the car would have been more suited to and more competitive in the Club Sprint class.
Got the car through scrutineering. A couple of the scrutineers had a bit of a look and they saw the door trims and the dash that was still in there from the original car and said, well, you know, why are you running in open? Get the car in Club Sprint and you should do a bit better there. So after the event, got the car home and the hunt began for aero and a little bit more performance. 2014, I got home and I thought with Club Sprint being sort of more a DIY garage build car for most of the competitors, I thought it'd be a good fit for myself.
It was at that point, with a clear goal in mind, that Paul began turning the car into what it is today.
With moving to Club Sprint, tried to focus on 3 key areas. The first one being aero, get a nice big wing and splitter on the car. Then power, so tried to get a turbo kit with piggyback computer at the stage. And with the tyres, took a backward step going to the 8008Rs. We just had to try to focus on making it work with the suspension that was in there.
Paul first turned his attention to the car's power, or lack thereof. The current engine was just not up to the task. Fortunately, there was another World Time Attack competitor running a Porsche who just happened to have an engine for sale.
After a bit of ringing around, got onto Rod Pobstek and acquired a 3 litre 944 engine that's in here. So this one was actually the block that was originally in the RP968.
The engine is an 8-valve inline-4 sourced from a Porsche 968. Inside we'll find Arrow rods and Wasner pistons, a ported head with factory valves and a honed intake manifold complete the engine package. Boost comes on via the Garrett GTX 3582R with a Trick twin wastegate setup. The gearbox is a factory Porsche 968H pattern 6-speed, which Paul says is perfectly capable of handling the power.
Now, I'm not too sure whether many people know, with the 944s, engines in the front, trannies in the back. So it's running a 6-speed transaxle that encases the differential in there. We've got a CAS 1.5-way LSD, which helps us get a bit of traction coming out of the corners. After purchasing the engine off Rod, we had a bit of a chat on the phone, and he actually started laughing at that time where the transaxle that I bought off him after the 2016 event was the one that was mated to this block in the first place. So we've put everything back together the way it should have been.
Like most of the systems on the car, the fuel system is simple and straightforward, consisting of a factory Porsche fuel pump and a set of Bosch Motorsport 1300cc injectors.
Had a few issues with the piggyback computer at that stage, so we sort of went backwards in power, went forwards with the aero, backwards in the tyres, but we ended up getting a new PB at the track.
On the suspension front, Paul opted for the popular KW Motorsport 2-way adjustable coilovers at all 4 corners. This, coupled with upgraded brakes, gave the car much needed handling and stopping power.
Wheels are a Momo Heritage 6, 18x10 ET23, because the early 944s ran a different offset to everyone else, so made it hard to get those, but that was great to get them on. The brakes have been upgraded to a black caliper off a 928 GTS, and the rears are still the standard ones off the original naturally aspirated 944.
The front splitter and the wing are by Top Stage Composites and provide plenty of downforce.
2019, we got the engine in there, so it was a mad rush last minute, as everyone does for World Time Attack. We had some issues with the ECU in there, and that's when we decided to chase up Haltech and solve all our problems.
The current engine management system consists of an Elite 1500 coupled with a wideband O2 controller, flex fuel sensor and an IC7 display dash. Paulso also uses a Haltech rotary trim module for different boost levels and a GPS speed sensor.
Brown trousers moments. The biggest one I've had was Phillip Island, coming around the back part of the track, in the rain, sitting in fourth, would have been about 150, 160, around one of the bends. Rear end's kicked out and spat me off the outside of the track, heading up the hill, hit the grass, and the car just didn't seem like it was going to slow down, even going uphill. Looking at this wall approaching and going nose first, I thought, well, not the best scenario. So thought let go of the brakes just so we can get a bit of momentum in the tyres. Got the car to actually spin around, and once it was heading backwards towards the barriers, put the feet on the brakes and sort of hope for the best. But luckily enough, the car just sort of bounced off the barrier. The noise was worse than anything. So I've hopped out of the car, had a bit of a look, a couple of marks on it, the wheel wasn't touched. So I've just jumped back in the car and shot off because it was a qualifying session for one of the state rounds. I thought I'd give everyone a clean track to keep racing rather than a yellow flag.
Apart from controlling the fuel injection and the ignition, the Elite 1500 also provides Paul with advanced engine protection, putting the car into limp mode should any of the critical engine sensors return a fault signal. Paul is currently running a cable throttle but plans on an upgrade to drive-by-wire to take advantage of the Haltech Elite traction control feature. Tuned by Justin from Dyno House at Narrabeen, the car laid down 354 horsepower or 264 kilowatts and a whopping 901 newton meters of torque on just 18 pounds of boost.
Probably the moment that sticks the most in my memory with this one is after doing my first engine rebuild, not being a mechanic, taking it out on the track and just having a sinking feeling in my stomach whether the thing was going to hang together. It actually went well. So didn't miss a beat and just did the right thing. So I thought, well, I've done my part in driving and building the car. So it was a good feeling there.
So the 944s are well balanced, relatively affordable, reasonably easy to repair and can be competitive on the racetrack. But, as Paul found out, there's also some caveats.
Biggest obstacle with this one is sourcing parts and the Porsche tax that's involved on everything that you want to get. So with the 944s, I've found that there is a difference between the Series 1 or early 944 and the later 944 after an 85.5, from what everyone says, where the things that you'd buy for a turbo or an 85 and up doesn't fit in an 83 straight up. So we just had to do a lot of modifying. If I was to do this again, I'd be on the hunt for a later model 944 after an 85.5 onwards, where all the bits and pieces would just fit on their first go rather than all the modifications required.
There's no arguing that motorsport is an expensive and time-consuming hobby, and sadly that deters a lot of entry-level racers from ever having a go. Paul and his garage-built Porsche prove that you can have just as much fun without breaking the bank.
Try to find the car where you'll be able to buy a lot of parts off the shelf, get them in the car without many modifications, which saves time in the garage, gets you out on the track where you're going to have a lot of fun. But keeping it simple means you're out on the track more.